The fryer never sounded right after dark. During the day, it was easy to ignore. Kids laughing, orders being yelled across the counter, the clatter of trays, all that noise covered up the strange sounds. But at night, when the lobby was closed and the place settled into that dead, humming silence, you could hear it if you stood still long enough. It didn't bubble like it was frying food. It breathed. Danny Fisher leaned against the counter and stared at the empty dining area. The chairs were flipped onto the tables. The floor was mopped and shining, but somehow the whole place still looked wrong, like the walls were breathing too. Like the ceiling tiles were sinking a little lower than they should have. He hated working late. Everybody did. Nobody said it out loud, but they all knew. The night shift at this McDonald's was different. McDonald's buildings had a smell that never went away, no matter how many times you cleaned. Old grease, sour milkshake, something sweet rotting in the air ducts. But this place was worse. Sometimes the air tasted almost metallic, like blood. Danny thought about calling Lori, the night manager, to check in, maybe just to hear a normal voice, but he didn't want her to think he was scared. He wasn't scared. Not really. Not yet. He picked up the mop and started toward the back hallway, the one that led to the bathrooms and the supply closet. That hallway was always colder than the rest of the building, and tonight was no different. Danny tried not to look too hard at the shadows piling up in the corners, tried not to notice how the buzzing fluorescent lights seemed just a little dimmer the further he went. He kept telling himself that he was being stupid. It was just another shift. Just another dead night. He was halfway to the bathrooms when he heard the sound, a soft rattle at the front door. Danny froze. He knew he had locked it. He always locked it after lobby hours. He turned slowly, the mop handle slipping a little in his sweaty grip. At the glass doors, someone was standing there, staring in. A man, tall, thin, wearing a black coat that hung down past his knees. He didn't move, just stood there, his face mostly hidden by the hood of the coat, except for the mouth. A smile stretched so wide it barely looked human. Danny's stomach dropped. He stayed where he was, heart hammering against his ribs. The man lifted one hand and pointed directly at the lock. Danny shook his head, mouthing, "Drive-through only." The man didn't react. He just kept smiling, his hand still raised, finger pressed toward the door like a warning. Something about the way he stood there made Danny's skin crawl. He felt like if he stared too long, the man might just slide through the glass somehow. No key, no door handle. Just pour himself inside like smoke. He backed up toward the counter. He needed to call Lori. Let her handle it. Danny picked up the phone, pressed the speed dial button they all used for emergencies. He held it to his ear, desperate to hear a voice, any voice. But all he got was static. A low whisper, almost like breathing. He slammed the phone down harder than he meant to. When he looked back at the door, the man was gone. No sign of him in the parking lot, no footsteps, just empty pavement and flickering lights. Danny stood there for a long minute, telling himself he hadn't really seen what he thought he saw. Maybe it was a reflection, maybe it was nothing. He turned back toward the kitchen. That's when he noticed it. The fryer wasn't bubbling anymore. It was whispering, something low and wet and eager. And standing next to it, almost blending into the shadows, was something that hadn't been there before. Something tall and wrong, like it had been stretched and melted in a place too hot for anything to survive. Danny didn't wait to get a better look. He ran. Danny burst through the swinging door into the back kitchen, breathing hard. The freezer was the safest place he could think of. Heavy door, no windows. He sprinted for it. He nearly made it too. Before the drive-through headset on the counter crackled to life, a voice whispered through the static. Not a normal voice. Not a customer asking for fries. It said one thing low and slow. "Come outside, Danny." He stared at the headset, chest heaving. Nobody had called his name. He hadn't said it over the speaker. Nobody in the parking lot should even know it. The lights above flickered again, and for one awful second, Danny swore he saw something moving in the reflection of the fry station window. long, dripping arms dragging along the counter, pulling something heavier behind them. He backed toward the freezer, never taking his eyes off the headset. It crackled again. "You left the door unlocked." Danny's heart stumbled in his chest. No, he had locked it. He remembered twisting the key, double-checking the bolt, but doubt wormed into his mind anyway. He moved past the prep tables, his sneakers squeaking on the greasy floor, toward the walk-in freezer. His hand closed on the heavy metal handle. Cold air leaked out around the edges, and for a second, he thought he smelled something clean, sharp and icy, cutting through the heavy stink of burnt oil. He wrenched the door open. Inside, stacked between boxes of frozen patties and bags of fries, something crouched in the far corner. It was too big to hide properly, too pale against the dark shelves. Its face was pointed right at him, and it was smiling. Danny slammed the freezer, ducked her shut and stumbled back, slipping a little on the wet floor. He didn't want to look again. He didn't want to see if that thing inside the freezer was still smiling at him through the tiny square window. Some part of him already knew it was. He backed into the main kitchen, chest heaving, throat dry. The drive-through headset still sat on the counter, hissing quietly like it was breathing in its sleep. Danny thought about running for the door, just busting out, sprinting across the empty lot to his car, peeling out of there and never looking back. He didn't move, his legs wouldn't listen. It felt like something was pressing down on him, thick and heavy, like the air had gotten syrupy. Every breath was work. The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back fully. The kitchen bathed in a dim, sickly yellow glow that made every shadow twice as long, every corner twice as dark. Somewhere in the lobby, a chair scraped across the floor. Danny flinched. He wasn't alone anymore. A sharp smell hit him. Not the usual grease and burnt oil, something sour, like spoiled meat left too long in the sun. He wiped his sweaty palms on his apron, trying to focus. The phone, he thought. Call Lori again. Call anybody. He grabbed the receiver, punched the speed dial button, static again. But this time, underneath the static, he heard something else. A voice, whispering. Come to the play place, Danny. His stomach dropped. The play place had been closed. For months. Management said it was because of health codes, mold or something worse. But everybody whispered about that room, about things moving inside it after hours. Danny gripped the phone so hard his knuckles turned white. He had two choices: stay here and wait for whatever was in the freezer, or face whatever was calling him to the play place. Neither option felt like survival. Danny edged toward the double doors leading to the play place. The windows into that room were all fogged up, even though the rest of the building was ice cold. He had to wipe the glass with his sleeve to see inside. At first, it looked normal. Colorful tubes twisting through the air like frozen worms. Plastic ball pit sitting in the corner. A sagging sea of grimy colors. The big yellow slide winding down from the ceiling. But something was wrong. There was something in the ball pit. He squinted, forehead pressing against the glass. A shape, not a kid, bigger, heavier, half sunken into the dirty plastic balls. It twitched. Danny staggered back from the door, heart hammering. He didn't want to go in there. He didn't want to find out what was waiting for him. But the kitchen behind him felt worse now. The fryer whispering louder, the freezer door rattling softly like something inside was pushing against it. Pick your poison, he thought grimly. He pushed open the play place doors and stepped inside. The air hit him like a wall. Wet, heavy, stinking of mildew and rot. His sneakers stuck slightly to the sticky floor with every step. The shape in the ball pit shifted again. Danny edged along the wall, keeping as much distance as he could. He needed to get to the emergency exit at the far end. That was his new plan. Out the door, into the night, gone. He was halfway across the room when the ball pit exploded upward. The thing that rose out of it was worse than anything his mind could have invented. It wasn't a man. It wasn't anything. It had the rough shape of a person, 2 legs, 2 arms. But its skin was pale and slick like it had been boiled. Its eyes were too big, too dark, and set too deep into its face. And that mouth, That same awful smile, stretching ear to ear, impossibly wide. Danny ran. He didn't think. He didn't look back. He barreled toward the emergency exit, grabbed the handle, and then yanked. Nothing. It didn't move. It was bolted shut from the outside. He turned, panting, ready to fight if he had to. But the thing wasn't chasing him. It stood at the edge of the ball pit, grinning, tilting its head like a curious dog. Like it was waiting. For what, he didn't know. He didn't want to find out. Danny ducked back through the doors into the kitchen. The air in there had changed again. It was hotter now, thick and greasy, like breathing in smoke. The fryer hissed and spat wildly. The freezer's metal doors bulged outward like something inside was pounding against them. And standing in the middle of the kitchen, right where he had been a few minutes ago, was the man from the glass doors. The long black coat, the stretched impossible smile, but now Danny could see the man's hands. They weren't hands. They were long, thin spikes of something black and dripping, like sharpened tar. The man lifted one hand slowly, pointing at Danny. "Come back," he said in a low, gurgling voice. Danny backed away. "No," he whispered. "No, I'm done, I'm done." The man took a step forward. The kitchen lights buzzed and popped. The fryer's whisper turned into a low, rumbling growl. Danny grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a metal tray, and hurled it. It passed right through the man without slowing down. The man laughed, a dry, rattling sound like wind through dead leaves. Danny turned and ran. He sprinted through the lobby toward the front doors, locked. He pulled and yanked and slammed his shoulder against the glass, but it didn't even shudder. He spun around and froze. The lobby was different now. It wasn't the same McDonald's he had been working in a few hours ago. The tables were wrong, twisted, warped, dripping like they were melting. The floor was sticky with something dark. The menu boards above the counter blinked and flickered, the words twisting into nonsense. "Welcome home, Danny." His breath caught in his throat. He turned back to the door and saw himself standing outside. Reflection, no, it was him, same uniform. Same hat, same terrified expression, only the other Danny was smiling. That same wide, tearing smile. The other Danny lifted a hand and pointed at the door lock, just like the man had. Danny stumbled back, feeling like he was going to be sick. He turned and found himself back in the kitchen. No running, no escaping. The building had folded itself around him. The smiling man was waiting for him. So was the thing from the ball pit, and from the freezer. Something huge and wet and wrong slithered out, leaving a trail of steaming slime behind it. Danny backed into a corner, trapped. The man stepped forward, towering over him. "You opened the door," the man said in that gurgling voice. "You let us in." Danny shook his head violently. "No, I locked it." The man leaned down, his face inches from Danny's. "You wanted us here," he whispered. "You were lonely." Memories slammed into Danny's mind. The long shifts, the empty apartments, the ignored calls to friends who were too busy. The nights he had stood staring out at the empty parking lot, wishing for something to happen. Anything. The man's grin widened even further, splitting his face like a ripe melon. "You wished for company," he said. "And we heard you," Danny screamed. When they found him days later, he was curled up behind the counter, muttering to himself, smiling so wide they thought his jaw might snap. He wouldn't speak to anyone, wouldn't respond. Only when they tried to move him did he start to scream. Long, high, and endless, until they had to sedate him just to get him into the ambulance. The McDonald's shut down after that. Nobody wanted to work there. Nobody wanted to walk past it, even during the day. People whispered about the way the windows, sometimes fogged up at night, about the faint smell of burnt oil and blood on the wind, about the laughter and low, cracked, and too wide, echoing from the empty drive-through speaker. They boarded up the windows, paved over the parking lot, but the building is still there, waiting, hungry, smiling.